We're going to start off with a fabulous panel on women in industry and the position of women in the creative industries. And I have an incredibly expert panel with me. I'm just going to name them first, and then I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves properly. But from my right, this is Tessa Mapp from Aardman Animations. Then I have Gina Jackson from the NextGen Skills Academy. Then Lisa Maffi, who's an executive producer at VFX. Michelle Blok, who's a previs artist at the Third Floor. And then I have Claire Norman, who's head of production at Milk VFX. And finally, on the end, that's Jenny Richards from Women in Games. So welcome to all of them. So can you guys, I guess, one by one, sort of just tell everyone a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how you got there? Sorry, it's quite a tall order.
I'm Tessa from the Admin Cgi Department. I'm the dedicated recruiter there. I've been recruiting at Aardman just for this last year, or just coming up to a year. And before that, I was a CGI artist. I graduated from Bournemouth University in 2003 with a first-class degree in computer visualization and animation. And from there, I got into animated production, so I worked on Captain Scarlet television series, and then I really, by accident, got a job in Australia working on Happy Feet, and so that just sort of turned into, that's where my life went. I started travelling, because that was in Sydney. And then I ended up having a couple of kids, coming back home and working in Bristol. That's about how I got there. Yeah, that's it. And I wanted to work part-time, so that's why I'm working at Aardman as a recruiter. Slight change of plan.
So, hi, I'm Gina Jax from NextGen Skills Academy. I'm the Managing Director, and we deliver and develop qualifications, training, and courses, particularly taster sessions for industry education and learners, and we cover the games, animation and VFX sectors. I've spent 20 years working in games, initially as a producer and then running studios, and then doing business development, particularly for IDOS, taking all of their products from Tomb Raider to Champman to Hitman online, and developing whole new streams of revenue. I got into the industry very much by accident. I have a degree in zoology. I then went on to do a master's in programming renderers. Didn't really know what I was doing, but I made a dinosaur swim that I modelled from the Natural History Museum. I got my first job just after 3D Studio came out, and I happened to have experience doing 3D Studio. There weren't many artists who did it. I had a programming background, and within 6 months I became a producer, because it turned out I'm not a great programmer and I'm not a great artist, but I could talk to both sides and bring them together.
Hi, I'm Lisa from VFX. We're based in Buenos Aires and in Barcelona. We specialize in simulation, so we do fluids and particles and fire and that sort of things for commercials and some films too. I ended up in VFX after working in production companies, advertising agencies and so on. So I feel like now I work in a place where I can kind of balance the more technical and the more commercial work, which is nice. Seems like we all ended up in our jobs by accident. I did too. But I enjoyed it, so it was actually a very good accident.
My name's Michelle, I'm from the Third Floor. I'm a previs supervisor. Basically, I don't know if people know too much about previs, but it's basically computer animating sequences before they're filmed, so we can sort of figure out creative options and technical options, so there are no sort of surprises once people get into production. We also do post-production, such as post-viz and also tech-viz, sort of figuring out basically where cameras need to be, how they're going to shoot stuff, figuring out motion-based movement, all that fun kind of stuff. Like the other ladies, I got into previs by complete accident. I started off as a landscape architect, and I really enjoyed 3D modelling. So I decided to sort of retrain as an 3D asset builder. And then when I my sort of first job out of college was for previs. Going to an interview, I had no idea what previs was or what was going to be asked of me, but they gave me the job, and I think within the first 6 months I found myself on set with Tim Burton trying to comp in CG backgrounds on a green screen set. So I think that was just too exciting to to sort of give away, so I decided to sort of stay in film, and now I've been in the industry for sort of quite a few years. And yeah, I'm now worked my way up to a supervisor level, and yeah, now working at third floor. So.
My name's Claire Norman. I'm head of production at Milk VFX. Milk is a medium-sized visual effects company. We work in high-end television and film. At capacity, we're around 120 members of staff, and we have an office both in London and Cardiff. And my story is I fell into visual effects as well, is the honest answer. I left university in 1996 when probably no one knew what visual effects was. Certainly there was no course at university in visual effects. I did media studies, and I had a friend who started at this company, and there was a runner's position going, and I went for the job pretending I knew exactly what I was going for. I had absolutely no idea. And I have, over the past 19 years or so, worked my way up to head of production at Milk. And at Milk, I oversee a team of production staff and editorial staff, and I break down scripts and bid visual effects work for potential clients. And it's been quite a surprising journey, but I recommend it.
Hello, I'm Jenny. I'm the CEO of Women in Games. I have run several publishing companies in the games industry. I joined Women in Games 18 months ago. We're a membership organisation of 5,000 people, not all women. Men are also welcome. There's 1,000 of the members are in the UK. And basically my organisation exists to inspire and promote women to come into the games industry, and when they're in the games industry, give them a really good chance of having a great career and promotions through the various initiatives that we do. We also work with education to provide information for young females to know what is possible to have a job in the games industry.
Okay. So I think I'm right in saying that pretty much across the industry, women are in a minority at the moment. And I hope I'm right in saying that that is beginning to change. But where do you think the problems lie, both historically and at the moment, in terms of getting more women into these industries? I don't know who I'm basically anyone can pick that up.
I think historically, we're probably talking about the technical background of like the computer side of like visual effects is computers and computer science. So back in the early days, there would have been a lot more technical side to it. So I think just sort of looking at it from a historical point of view, there are more men, sort of seniors, because that's how the industry started. As sort of but because women weren't going on those kind of courses, and I think there was in the 80s there was a sort of much higher proportion of women doing computer science, and then it sort of dropped back down again. I don't know the statistics, but I just know that it's kind of gone quite bad, and now there's a big push for more women into computer science.
But then it's true of animation as well, like traditional animation has historically been quite male as well.
Yeah, because traditional animation, the women weren't allowed to do the animating, they could only do the painting, so women weren't allowed in Disney, but back in sort of
a very long time ago.
Yeah, like the 30s. But even then it was still in the 50s and 60s, I don't think women were actually animating.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, if we look at the stats, currently women working in games is at 14%. But back in 2000, it was up at 20%, and we did dip as low as 6%. So I think there is an issue with bringing need women into the industry and bringing them through education, but it's also understanding why we have such a leaky bucket and why the majority of the women are working at a lower level, and we've lost a whole raft of senior women. And how do we keep hold of those senior women? We have an initiative called Aspiring Women, which is a mentoring program. There's at least 2 participants in the audience in VFX games and animation, and that's a 26-week course where we meet up when we have different masterclasses and training, and people have access to mentors. And just halfway through, we sat down and had a conversation about how it was going, and every single person said that their confidence had increased. And it's because we live in a male-dominated society. It's about how we balance that up and how we make sure that everyone has equal access and understands how to play the rules of a career. And it is about playing those rules.
So how do you do that?
I think it's about understanding. If you look at recruitment, Google did a great survey, and they found that women applied for a job when they had 80% of the skills, men applied with 50%. Why aren't women willing to take that risk?
Yeah.
Well, we're taught from a young age, don't take risks. Don't put yourself out there, you might be harmed. So, and then we're suddenly saying, well, hang on, men will take a risk at 50%, but you won't take a risk till 80%, but you should do it if you're good enough. That's a real dichotomy for women to struggle with. So how can we reword a job spec that encourages more women to apply for it? Do we ever train people who write a job advert? No, we've done the stats. No, we don't train people. So what can we do just to make it easier that you get the best person applying for your job, not the person you dictate by the job advert?
So is it, I mean, to the people that foreign, is it about being less perfectionist or less kind of hard on ourselves in that case and sort of just going for the things that seem out of reach?
Do you want me to take that? Yeah, well, I think that is definitely, I mirror everything that Gina says, and I think that confidence is a huge thing. I think education is also a huge thing in our industry, which is games, but has a crossover with the VFX as well, is that girls at a young age who are taking STEM subjects don't understand that there's possibilities in these industries for girls to have jobs. They still think it's jobs for the boys. And through a number of initiatives we're trying to do is trying to reach as many of those people, those females, to educate them that there are possibilities in the games industry. And a lot of the huge publishers and all the other publishers, but definitely the principal publishers, give females a really good deal in the games industry. And I haven't got the answers, actually, at the moment, but it's about spreading the word as far down as females in years 8, 9, 10, a lot of whom have already decided to take STEM subjects and don't have any clue that there's any possibility for them to have really good, solid careers in these industries that are growing massively outside some of the other areas that they're looking at.
Yeah.
Can I just say, there are also, compared to 10 years ago, there are roles in the industry that didn't exist back then. So you were sort of working towards, people are filling all these gaps now with the new technology in film production, and kids that are coming through now, they will probably have jobs that don't exist at the present. So you just keep working, but you don't necessarily know what you're going to be working towards, and there are going to be new roles that will open up with skills that you have or that you can develop. So it's like taking the risk and just going, right, I might not be, I might not have everything I need to do for this job, but who knows, if I study this or I'll try this, and then something else will open up, which I think maybe many of us have sort of experienced in our own careers, where everything's happened, by accident, and we haven't necessarily planned stuff, it's just happened. So, it's one of those things where you've just got to, just go ahead and put yourself forward and just have the confidence to go ahead and try that. So
give it a go.
But I think with thinking about not just getting people into the industry, but keeping them in the industry, because I think there is that, you've got to really love this industry if you want to stay in it and be in it. So I would never, one of the questions I know is coming up in the careers is about, would we recommend this industry? And I was saying I would never recommend anyone to go into this industry, but I would never discourage anyone who was passionate about it to go into it, because I think it's got to be that vocational, I want to do this, and that's how you'll stay in the industry. And I think people will drop out if they're just looking at subjects and going, well, I'm good at that and I'm good at that, maybe I could do this. I think it's more, you've got to have that passion as well.
Okay. Is that something that historically has been more encouraged in men? Men are encouraged to have a passion, women are encouraged to have, if they're encouraged at all, to have a job, but we're also expected to do everything else as well. Is that unfair, or is that
else?
I think maybe that's changing, or it will change when, like, the next generation, when maybe we or or you have
Come through.
kids, and then maybe our parents were born in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 30s, I don't know. So maybe this still needs a bit more. But I find it funny how women seem to be more creative from ages, I don't know, 5 till 15. I don't have the statistics, or I'm talking about what I feel. But women seem to be more creative, in their games and what they do, and men seem more physical. And then it's weird how all this creativity seems to stop at some stage.
But what was a boundary for me personally, because I was very creative as a kid, was the computers, and that it was kind of, that sounds sort of so stereotypical, but I did find that was something that I'd seen Luxo Junior, that was the thing. I was very young, that was 1986, so I was very young, but that was in the cinema, and I just thought, wow, it's magic, and then it just sort of went out of my head. And then it wasn't until Toy Story came along, I actually brought it with me so I could show. That I realised actually that is something I could do, and I think it's sort of now, well, I don't know, how did we start this conversation?
Well, I think we're saying if you've got the passion and the drive, and that's what you want to do, go for it. We're not saying it's a meal ticket for women. It isn't, because it's hard work. We're just saying if you want to do it, then the door's open.
Yeah. I mean, just to come at it from the other perspective for a minute, what do women bring to the industry specifically? Like, what's the advantage to the industry itself of having a more diverse workforce?
You could just say what's the benefit of having it male dominated? It's just like it's not right. It's not normal, is it?
No.
It's just not like life.
Exactly. It makes for a true reflection of life. We want, we don't want to work in a workplace where the majority is men, because life's not like that. And women and both men can bring different perspectives to a working situation.
There's plenty of industries where it's female dominated, so it works both ways. It's just trying to even it out across society.
I think it's also a commercial decision. Our audiences are about 50-50. So the people creating the entertainment need to be reflective of those audiences. And we know that diverse teams make better products, because the more constructive criticism you can get for a product, the better product you make. So it's a commercial decision as much as anything else.
So would you hope that by having, a more balanced team, that you don't end up with kind of an embarrassing product, basically, that's going to be hauled across the coals for being sexist, unrepresentative?
Well, that's happening now, right? So, apparently we have proof that a male-dominant industry makes not very good so I think the proof is it's there, so it's time to maybe change it. Maybe it's changing. Some of us maybe have more the facts, the numbers. You have very good numbers and percentages and so on.
And what about sort of the importance of role models in the industry? I mean, you talked a little bit about mentoring and that kind of thing, but did you have female role models as you entered the industry, or was it about finding any mentor of any gender?
Very few. I think there was Gina and I and a handful of others when we started in the games industry, and we have a mentoring program as well that's a one-to-one female. It doesn't do as many workshops and whatever the NextGen skill, but that's aimed at a younger audience, trying to bring them on and giving them the advice that they need at their stage of their careers. I mean, I think that everyone can, if you want to look up to someone and follow their path and try and get them as a mentor, I have to say that mentoring, I think, is a massive initiative to get involved in whichever sector you're in. If you can find a mentor through a program or an individual, I think that it's absolute priceless information that you'll get. A contemporary or even somebody that's worked in the industry, that has the knowledge, that can pass on their experiences and help guide you through situations that are actually pretty tricky at times. And you can't always get that help internally, even when you're in a company. Because if you're having issues within a company, even if they have internal mentoring schemes, you know, once you've put out your issue into the ether, if you like, you then have to you have to live with that information. Whereas a one-to-one mentoring scheme like ours or the NextGen scheme is a confidential, safe place that people can talk about their careers, what's happening to them in the workplace, in a way that's completely open and confidential between those two people. So there's a huge element of trust. And the experiences people are having on our mentoring program are extreme in the positive. And I think that we could all benefit, whichever stage we are at in our careers, by, I mean, maybe there weren't so many people, but we all talked to our friends when we were coming through our careers, and maybe some of those people will give us advice. But I think if you can find somebody that you admire, the work that they've done, I think that's a really huge benefit.
Yeah, I like that idea of admiring, because I think that was one of the things that came. I couldn't think of anyone that I sort of, on the women's side anyway, that I sort of look up to, and that's the kind of job I want to do. There's no one who was a woman doing that. But I do play the cello, and I absolutely love Jacqueline Dupre. She's a god. But it's just because her sort of talent and skill to me is just, to me, that's the thing to aim for. So it wasn't so much like, and it's not just her, obviously, but I mean, there's loads of men I aspire to be like. It's not just being one or the other. I don't feel like I need to have a woman to look up to, but she just happens to be the only person that could come to my mind of like aspiring to be the best at whatever it is you do, and that's what she was to me.
Awesome.
Sorry, just to add to that, I mean, I know women now, there are are increasing in in positions of supervisors or HODs or producers, and they've had to work through, starting many years ago when times were a little bit tougher, and they've had to work incredibly hard to reach these positions, against the sort of the tide of sort of the boys' clubs and things like that. But now it's now that they're there, they sort of set foundations. And I'm talking to colleagues about this discussion before coming here. They're going, when they apply for jobs, they look, or female colleagues, they look to see how many women are actually already in the company, because it means that that company encourages women to be there, and they sort of see it as the opportunity to actually advance in their careers. Where if you're going to go to a company where there are no females, it's like, well, obviously that company doesn't really care or promote sort of advancing women in the industry. So they're much more likely to sort of go to these companies where there are women already established in positions of authority, where they can go, right, these guys are, they've got their act together, and they'll go and apply for jobs at those specific places. So sort of helping women, get on the step ladder and sort of work their way up. So
that might sort of tie into my next question, because I was going to ask about the importance of sort of peer-to-peer networks, and then also maybe social media networks. Does it help that you can find out so much more about other people in your position, and other people in your industry, other people who are kind of around your level?
I think it's crucial. And I'm going to do a quick plug for Animated Women, as they aren't here. They've got an event on the 2nd of March at the Mill. We'll tweet their details later from NextGen, but also from Animated Women. Go out, meet people, talk to people. Mentors are all around you to... I'm quoting a Wet, Wet, Wet song. Showing my age. But you don't have to have a special mentor. Mentors get an awful lot out of the relationship between a mentor and a mentee. They get probably more than the person being mentored get, because they get that experience and they get that reflection. But go out and meet and talk to as many people as you can, and increase your network as far as you can at every level. It's vital.
Yeah. So what would you use? Is it Twitter? Is that the most important? Is it Hive? Is it...
I think use the thing that works for you. And part of our training we did about social media and personal branding and being true to yourself. Be safe online, but find a community that will support you. And there are lots of communities that are going on that will support you online and with what you're doing, and use the things that you feel comfortable with.
Okay. Do we have questions in the audience? Because I would quite like to throw it open at some point. I can see one at the back. Do we have a mic at all? No. Okay, well, there's a couple. Let me go to the people at the front first because I can hear them. We'll try and get you a mic up there. Sorry, here.
Hi, I'm Elise, senior producer at NextGen. So used to be in the VFX industry as well. Now it's a little break. But my question to you guys, girls, sorry, how many of you have a family? How has it affected your career, your life? Or if you don't have a family yet, and with family I mean kids, what is your plan? Or how do you think Because I'm now at the stage getting 30, and I'm very ambitious, very family driven, but I also want kids. For me, it's a big dilemma.
No?
That was my question.
She was just asking, has this been planned? It has not.
I thought I put that question as my
it was,
like,
yeah, I know.
it was like my taboo, should we ask that question. But yes, I have kids. Ta-da! And I really wanted kids, and I couldn't have ever imagined myself not having kids. So to me, that was always a thing. And I do mentor other people as well. I'm lighting, and I'm one of the girls I was mentoring at Bournemouth. She's gone on to job at Blue Zoo now, so that's really good. But I remember she was just really pleased to meet me and say, "Oh, well, I'm so glad that I've met another woman who's sort of had a career, but it has a career, but that has children, because I want to be a VFX soup, I'm so excited and all this stuff, but I really also want to have children, and I'm really worried about what it's going to do to my career, how it will change it." And she said she'd asked some men on a panel or something before, and when they'd visited her university, and they just said to her, "You don't need to worry about that yet, you're too young." And I just thought how patronising and horrible that was, and I just told her how it was, that it will change what you want to do, and I mean everyone's different, and some people will want to just if you've got a staff job, so I think I brought this up with Framestore before as well, they have so if you're employed, then you get your maternity leave and then you go back after, but if you were freelance like I was, or you could you work for a company for a bit and then you stop and then you work for another company, and so when you've got kids, you just can't do that because of childcare. So you can't just put your kid in childcare for 2 weeks. It's a continuation thing, and it's bad for them. It's also bad for they don't let you do it. it's just a nightmare basically. So it can be super tricky. But I used to live in Canada as well. I worked in Vancouver for a bit, and this was after my first kid. This is with my partner because he also works in the industry. Again, this is something we say, it helps when you know what the industry's like, your family, and you can move around. So we've moved around the world. And in Vancouver, a job came up at a company called Western Post, and they're a family-friendly company. They put that on their advert, we're family-friendly, it's about work-life balance. But it was a full-time job, and I just applied and said, look, I've not worked for a bit because I've had a child, but I'm a senior lighter, and I'd like to apply for this job, but I only really want to work 3 days a week. And I said, don't worry if you don't want to get back to me, I totally understand. This is my email, is that I'm putting myself down. And then he got back to me straight away and said, no, we're really interested, can you come and see us? And I went in, and they said that was fine because you're a senior, and we it would be just you doing that job. So I managed to, because I could schedule myself over the 6 months, do that job, and that was 3 days a week. But since coming back to the UK, I had another kid as well after that. But then coming back to the UK, I thought, naively maybe thought that I might be able to do that, but it's just, I didn't want to live in London for other reasons as well. So being in Bristol is a good place for us. But for the actual industry, it's all freelance work, so it's all long hours or short-term contracts, and just doesn't work with childcare. So now I'm working at Aardman, and I work 2 days a week, and it was just a job that came up, and I knew that I've always been interested in the recruitment process, and I love watching showreels. That's like my favourite thing. So I sit and watch all the showreels, and I find the suitable candidates based on my background knowledge. So it's super useful, and I kind of can't believe anyone recruits without having that knowledge, to be honest. So yeah, it's worked out for me, but at the same time, I see myself as an artist, and I see myself going back to be an artist. So I'm going to have to when my kids go to school, sort of reevaluate. But again, it's just this evolution. It's your life, and you do what you want to do and live it how you want to live it. But it makes it tougher when you've got kids, obviously.
So to see as more females enter the industry, companies are really going to have to start thinking about how they're going to manage this, because otherwise they're going to be missing out on some great talent, and they really have to try and accommodate for these things. I mean, for now, I think it's sort of a company thing. Some companies are better at accommodating for parents than others, whether it's male or female. I know we've got a couple of people who they have some afternoons off, and they're in supervisor level roles as well. So it's it's just whatever the company policies are.
And the department as well, because if you're in previs, you're doing the stuff earlier on.
Yeah.
So probably the pressure isn't on quite so much. I think if you're a compositor, you're a bit screwed, because basically you're right at the very end, and your deadline is your deadline, and everything can push. But
no, I don't know. I think we all have. Everybody has deadlines.
Yeah. I just know from some experience that it's
I'm not sure this topic is necessarily specific to visual effects or games. It's every career
That's
for
true.
women.
But I think visual effects and games at the moment have a particular visual effects. More so has a particular structure that is particularly unfriendly. I think it's probably fair to say, just in terms
because
of
of
that,
the long
so much
hours.
contract work, so many long hours, and such widely varied hours as you're getting towards the end of the job, I guess.
And it's another culture thing that you're expected to work long hours. It shouldn't necessarily be like that. You do have to have that balance of work and life.
One of the reasons I work at Aardman, because we don't have that culture there.
And you're right. It's a parent issue, not just a mother's issue.
And I would say I've had a career break without having children. I work part-time because my work-life balance was all over the place, and I work 3 days a week. If you find the right company and the right support, you can do it anywhere. So don't put off what you want to do. Your life's more important than your career. Have your life and make your career work for you, whatever you do, and find other women and other people who are supportive of helping you achieve what you want to achieve, and do both.
I think we had another question over here, unless it was the same question.
I think that as more women go into the industry, I think it will, to some extent at least, resolve itself. I remember when I was a child, and I don't know why I did this, but I always used to look at the credits of all the films, and it was just all men. There was hardly ever a woman's name anywhere, and I certainly had a very distinct impression that that entire world, not just visual effects, but that whole world, was completely male-dominated. But now, in the credits, you do see some female names, not a lot of female names, and I do wonder if something could be done more with the credits, because I think that is a kind of something that people might be picking up about whether or not women can really go into the industry. So that's just a kind of observation. But then I had two questions. You mentioned that the percentage of women in the industry was 20% at one stage and dropped to 6%, and that was just after 2000 or something. And I was just wondering if anyone knew, because that seemed very strange to me, why there was a sudden big drop, if anyone has any idea why that happened. And then my second question is, you've mentioned the mentorship schemes, but are there other schemes, so before someone is at the stage when they might be seriously looking at a mentor, but do you have other schemes, I guess this is probably more for Gina and Jenny, that are about inspiring young women, probably at school level, I guess, into going into the industry?
Great, thank you.
So to go back to the stats, they were particularly around games. I think it was what we talked about before, a halo effect, and it's where the industry was contracting. Women tend to take redundancy more quickly than men do. So especially when you lose a lot of senior women, you also lose that halo effect that they create around the rest of the industry, and then we saw people leaving in large groups. And your second question, yes, we're working with both the BFI and the Prince's Trust, as well as doing our own taster sessions. We have a course that runs in FE colleges, and we work with them. So if you come along and you say, oh, that's quite interesting, we say, come along, spend an afternoon with us, see if you like it. If you like that, come for a week, or then come for 3 weeks in the summer. And that way we're trying to change the diversity, whether it's women or social economic background, or whether it's ethnicity. We need people who have different social experiences to make the best kind of products, whether that's game or film or animation. And if we are all the same and all doing the same things, we're all going to just make the same products. It's funny, that, isn't it?
Was there another question up there?
Hello, Mail here.
Hello.
I was just wondering, the biggest example you gave was before the war, even 1938, was it? Which was about-ish 80 years ago. I was just wondering because
Sorry, biggest example of what?
the Disney, Walt
Okay.
Disney, big gender difference there. I was wondering because we've quite evolved a bit from that time. If a woman shows a good skill and good passion over the subject, I don't think there are any limitations for it nowadays. It really does surprise me because right now we're in a panel that kind of is meant to convince or encourage women in the industry. Just the idea of that is quite primal.
I just want to say, though, that I agree what you're saying, like because we look at show reels, we don't look at names on show reels, we look at show reels and we hire based on the best person. But sometimes we'll offer jobs to women and they won't take them. Sometimes there's women leaving the industry, so we're talking about encouraging, you're looking at the industry as a whole as it is now, not in the future. We're looking at, so at the moment universities might be 50-50, but is the industry going to be 50-50? I think that was one of the sort of
I think
questions.
the reason they leave is because they're not passionate enough, maybe. Because, I mean...
You're brave.
No, I'm not saying for women in general, but I'm saying for the general public, even males.
I've heard this from other people, actually. Other men have said that to me as well.
So
They've
what
said maybe
evidence do you
there's
have for that statement?
Yeah.
I'm just saying that there are many sites out there that are, for everyone, of course. We're not living in a gender, But there are sites like YouTube, digital tutors, where anyone can learn and be passionate on the subject. Anyone who leaves the subject just because they've been discouraged to leave, they've been encouraged to leave, is a bit...
I can look at all the faces in the audience.
I don't think... Well, wouldn't you expect then the number of people leaving to be 50-50 male-female if people are just losing their passion and there were no other things affecting them?
I think maybe we should look at guys in this as well. Like, guys have got a lot of pressure on them to be like the man earning the money, bringing home the baby. I don't know. I think it's not just about women, feminism. It's about men too.
It is about men too, absolutely.
Yeah. It's about equality. It's about making sure that everyone's got the same opportunity. And it's about making sure that we've got the best and strongest industry because we're able to bring talent through. It shouldn't be a gender issue.
And you were saying
Exactly.
51% women with games? More women playing games than there are.
I mean, none of us really want to be on this panel. None of us want to have a panel like this at a conference like this. But I think if we don't stand up and make sure that people are talking about gender and diversity, then nothing will change. And we want things to change for a whole industry.
And that
But
women are
isn't it
seen.
increasing the number of women?
It's increasing now, but it has been much higher and it has decreased. I think it's understanding what the issues are and tackling those issues as a group of men and women, not just as a group of women standing up looking like they're nagging about a problem. It's a problem for everybody. It's how do we make our industry stronger and how do we make the UK economy stronger?
I have one more question, so if I can get the mic just to this lady over here, please.
Hello, hi Gina. I'm actually part of the Aspiring Women programme, but I just wanted to throw a question out to the room as well, after that very bold question. And it's not just an industry thing. I think a lot of women are taught as children, drawing is maybe a thing towards girls, and cooking is towards girls. But of course, like chefs are all men. There's that whole thing that a lot of industry, the highest possible thing, a lot of the time goes to male. It's male dominated. But when you're a woman who is passionate and is trying to get ahead in their industry, but having that voice can sometimes throw you back, because if you're in a male-dominated environment and you are the woman going, give me a chance, and sort of being a bigger voice, trying to get somewhere, how would you advise doing that without the repercussions and not getting angry, of course.
So being assertive without being dismissed as belligerent.
Shall I take that?
Sure.
I think, there are always possible repercussions. I think with you being on Gina's programme, I'm sure that you're having a lot of information and workshops around building your confidence in how you approach those situations. If people are passionate and good at what they do, they can stand up for that. It's absolutely fine. And, the reality is that you need to judge what the potential repercussions are going to be and see if you're... And I don't think there's any reason, whatever the repercussions, if you're positive and passionate about what it is you're trying to get across, that you should step away from that at all. And I think that part of the programs that we're trying to develop is to give people the reasonable amount of confidence. That's not too much confidence, to actually be able to apply the things that they want. I mean, I'm talking in the round here because I don't know what specific, if there's anything specific that you have an issue with. But just stand up and say it. I have plenty of passionate women in my cohort that are really happy to stand behind their volition of what they're trying to do, in a sense that they really have to believe that that's the right thing to do.
You can be passionate about more than one thing. I think there's this sort of mistaken sort of thought that, you're passionate about VFX, you're passionate about film, but you can be passionate about life, you can be passionate about music, you can be passionate about art and other things, and it's not just your kids, you can, and there's nothing wrong in wanting to split that passion. So, I still want to be passionate and do my job, but I still also want to work part. I feel strongly that we should have that ability to work part-time. That's something I'm passionate about as well. So, I don't know.
All right. One thing I've noticed over the years is, more specifically answering that question, I have noticed women who seem to adopt ways of working that are quite male. So they're quite aggressive in their manner of dealing with things. And I'm talking about quite senior women. And what I would say is I think people should just be true to themselves. Don't be anything other than who you are. Don't feel you have to behave in a specific way. If you see an issue at work that you don't necessarily agree with, just say it. Just say it as you would say it. Don't feel you have to say it as a, in a, if you like, male manner. You don't have to do that.
Right, well, sorry. I'm afraid we've run over time, and I am supposed to wrap it up because the next panel starts in less than 10 minutes. But listen, I want to thank all our panellists. I imagine a couple of you at least will be hanging around a little bit if anybody else has questions outside. And obviously, I know NextGen Skills Academy, Women in Games, and so on. You can go to the websites, you can go to the Twitter accounts and follow them and see what they're doing. But I want to thank Tessa, Gina, Lisa, Michelle, Claire, and Jenny very much. Thank all of you for your questions. And yes, 10 minutes until the next panel. Thank you.